Hi everybody, we're back. We're going to do another bit of recording. We've just been having a little bit of a chat about what we're going to sort of talk about a little bit off air, and we've come to a vague topic that we're going to throw out to everyone. I'm going to do the bookkeeping first, though. Hi, this is the Random Encounters group of cannon fodder dealing with. Well, you're getting close to it. Dealing with the Abomination Vaults. We're doing this through Foundry VTT. We've got a little bit of sound effects going on. We're using OBS. We're recording all that stuff, and these will appear on YouTube once I get myself sorted and I can edit them. However, I call them group cannon fodder because we're talking about the concept. We've been doing this a little bit off air. We're going to do a little bit now on air about the concept of ramping up the difficulty of your game. And fundamentally, how you can take multiple different approaches to this sort of thing. And Abomination Vaults has kind of done both, because you've started off with a fairly simple ramping up difficulty. Things progressively started getting difficult, but your levels were matching it, so things were still going the same way and fights were still going the same way. And when you encounter things that are very much within that level bound at the moment, you guys are okay. Case in point, you did find one fight on the floor below here, which you have just happily minced your way through. It cost you quite a bit of resources, but you just got through it, and nobody really took a lot of damage, and it was perfectly fine. But you did encounter one fight previous to that, which hit you once and really made you panic and run away. And it's this idea of, is it fun when things suddenly take a turn for the worst, and you suddenly realise that the game has decided to ramp up the difficulty? Or is it better if you're just kind of chugging along, and while there are harder and harder creatures, they are matched to your level? And I think, generally speaking, my approach to this is, it's cool to have a mix of both. But you've kind of got to be willing to accept that when you do make that big step up because you want something to be scary, you might upset people. And this game doesn't really pull its punches in terms of that sort of regard. But that's my opinion. I have 4 players here that also have their own sort of ideas about it, I am sure. I'm not going to pick anybody. If you want to dig in now and say your piece, go for it.
I know from my experience being on this side of the table, it's nice to have the problem of this sudden step increase. It's nice to have that because it does induce a little bit of panic, and it is a little bit of fun, and you get the stress and worry that your character is not going to survive, and that's why a lot of them write backups. So that's a lot of fun.
I think for me it depends on the purpose of the game. So this one is quite narrative driven for me. I care about the story, I care about the characters, I care about the interactions. So fights that leave me wondering whether the character's going to survive don't serve that terribly well. They need to be interesting, they need to be challenging, it needs to absolutely to be possible to lose them with the wrong luck or just, crap decision making on the players' parts. But for me, this game is more about narrative. I've played others where it's more or less a sort of, it's a board game played around the table with your mates. And the interesting bit there is, how do I use the resources I've got with this character? What are the tactics we as a group use to defeat this? So it's almost more of a co-op board game that happens to be set in tabletop, and there's less characterization and less story. And in that case, because it's a mental challenge of how do we defeat the monster, as opposed to an emotional attachment to where does this character go next, harder challenges are probably more interesting.
Yeah, I quite like the mix of things. So, having the gradual ramp up as we get more experience, because one, that allows us to learn the rules of our characters as well, because when you're playing a new character or a new class that you've not played before, you don't want to be like thrown in the deep end with something really, really difficult and not know what you can do. And okay, I'm whatever level I am now, and I still don't remember half my skills, and that's because the phys rep has really bad memory. But I also like things being thrown at us that are maybe too tough for us, and players remembering it's okay to retreat. I think a classic problem on a lot of, I found this in LARP and I found it in tabletop, where people go, right, I'm in the fight now, I just have to commit. And it's like, well, that's how you get your TPKs. That's how, you should have an exit strategy. And I suppose some characters wouldn't, but generally the characters I've played would always know, like, how do I get out of this situation, kind of thing. And I like that as an option, because that creates role play as well and engagement, because it's like, what do we do once we've retreated? So yeah, I like the mix.
Dave?
I have nothing probative to add.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, this group of individuals, after having decided that they were going to go down a floor for a little bit and have a look around, have managed to survive and quite handily deal with a fight that was down there. But the decision was that maybe carrying on down there was not something that they wanted to do. So have decided that it's a good idea to go back upstairs and just have a look at a few things that they bypassed on the way. One of those was a room that was barricaded by a bed frame and a bed and various other bits and pieces that were just in the way. They've moved all of that stuff aside and had a look in this room to find it is currently occupied by, well, let's have those rolls, shall we, to see if you can work out what's in here. So we're going to jump over to the map, and I would like, if anybody really, really wants to do this, it will be a religion roll, I'm afraid. That is the only real option. However, if you happen to have unholy or undead lore, you can roll those instead.
I am going to use my hero point again on my first roll of the session, because I don't think a 5 was particularly good. And now I've rolled a 5 again. Fine.
Oh,
So, just a quick one, because the aura that has been applied
Mm.
is frightened 1.
oh yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to flag bravery, which is
Okay.
one of my level 3 things. In addition, anytime you gain the frightened condition, reduce its value by 1. So
Okay.
I see frightened 1 right now. Is that right? Or should
It is right, I'm afraid, because there's one thing about the aura that this creature gives out. It is an aura which not only gives you frightened 1, but it also stops you being able to reduce by any means your frightened condition.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay. Fair enough. I'll wind my neck in then. Yeah, fine. What the bloody day?
Because the one
So
thing, if it said you can ignore the frightened condition, that would be fine. But it says you reduce, and then the aura specifically states that you cannot reduce in any way.
Okay. And there's no way, and it's not appropriate to roll for will against.
Nope.
Okay.
Inva,
Let's
sorry.
roll 14.
Inva or Kess, dependent on whether or not it was a question or an in-character process.
I was going to give you the result of the roll, but
Yes.
I rolled a 5.
Yeah.
I add 8 for the skill, and then I take off 2 for being frightened 2.
You should only be frightened 1, so I'm not sure why you're frightened 2. Yeah, you should only be 1, so let me just reduce that. You should only be frightened 1.
So it becomes 12 as my
12?
subtotal after spending a hero point.
Okay, well, the one thing I will say is that they've now decided that critical failures, which that was, on lore checks do not give you negative information. They've taken that out of Remaster, so you no longer get negative information if you critically fail.
Do you want?
Yeah, I should totally
Master?
cast harm on that. That'll really fuck it up. Would be the best choice ever.
Neffy got what?
27.
27. You're not sure. You've never seen anything like this before.
Jeez.
Oh.
Moz, with your
Oh, dear.
undead lore.
15.
Not a clue.
9 and 6. Yeah.
Not a clue.
Also, not a critical failure.
No, that was a critical failure.
Oh, I was.
Ooh. I'm actually not crap at it. But the dice is.
So I will say this: anybody that was rolling religion, the DC was 34. And anybody that had an applicable law, which I was going to go with, undead is an applicable law, but it's not a very specific applicable law. So that would have been a 29 you needed for that one. So this guy is pretty impressive in terms of those sorts of identifications. He takes a look at you, as I said, as he turns around in his chair, and he very charmingly says, "Thank you very much for letting me out. It's been a very long time. I apologize. The first thing I should have done was to introduce myself. My name is Chafkem.
Bless you.
you get
everyone just breaks. I love it. Everyone just went.
No, that was a swift elbow to the rib. That wasn't a brace.
Look, I appreciate that the youth of the world like to make jokes, but I don't recommend it with me if I were you. Needless to say, I am still at least appreciative of the fact that you have finally managed to get deep enough into the Abomination Vaults that somebody's finally managed to make it here in order to alleviate my incarceration. Now, considering you have managed to get yourself down this far, I do have a series of questions which I insist you answer. Believe that there are a number of creatures still abound on the various floors. I don't expect much from you, but at least tell me this. The Shugurthi from the floor below, they still are there?
No.
Well, one of them is.
Well, yes.
Are they?
They are still there. Well, yeah. I mean, I haven't cleaned them up, have you?
Okay,
They're dead.
one's dead.
Well, this concept that you've killed one, it is impressive, but there were at least a few of them on that floor. Have you seen any evidence that any of the rest of them are gone?
How long ago
No.
were there many of them? When do you think
It will have been a long time. No. I'm well aware that it is several hundred years since I was put in that chamber. I was alive at the point I was put in that chamber for a start.
Who put you in the chamber?
The leader of this bunch of Shugurthi, he is a flesh warper by the name of Jafaki, an alchemist of sorts, but he bends the flesh and bones of other creatures. As far as I'm aware, it is his doing that I was put inside here and locked within. And I would doubt at this point, you've said you've only encountered one. Jafaki is a coward of a creature. I doubt he would have been the first that you would have encountered.
GM, what was that person that the last one mentioned?
He did not mention Jafaki. He
No,
mentioned
I know it wasn't
another creature. Let me just try and...
Did D send you to Drazari to...
It was Usirian or something like that. Let me just very quickly get the... Let me get the right one. No. Sorry, digging up the right part. Where is it?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I've just got to find the right one. There it is. The creature, the name that you heard in your head was... It is here. I've just got to find it. So spelling Urevian, Urivian.
What? URV?
Urevian,
Oh.
Urivian
Thank you.
was the one you heard in your head.
Mhm. So now she's addressing the NPC. Have you heard of a Urevian? Urevian?
Yes, I've heard of him in passing. Needless to say, what's your point?
The one that we killed, he asked if we were sent by him.
It's not a name from the upper floors. I'd imagine that's a name from further down.
Okay.
In either case, if this is something that you heard or a name you've listened to, it is nothing to do with me. Right, you've answered some of my questions at least, then tell me a little bit more of what you're doing here.
Problem solving.
What specific problems?
Things are turning on and they're causing problems for other people.
Things are turning on. Can you be less cryptic while also sounding slightly less stupid?
Probably not.
He's got you there, Moz.
Probably not.
Hey guys, can he join the party? He's funny.
Well, the wonderful tower of which you're on a level of seems to be turning itself on in the way that it was intended to do to an extent, and is causing a problem for the people who was intended to cause a problem to. So we're here to solve that.
You're saying the tower is reactivating.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The only person that has the real knowledge in order to do that is Belcora, and she died, well, shortly before I did.
Well, in that case, then, someone's the new Belcora. Because...
Who chose you?
I did.
But you were dead.
No, I set up the ritual to turn myself into this form, which involved killing myself. It's part of the ritual. You have to die in order to become a mummified creature.
So this was the ultimate aim?
No. This was the compromise to make sure that I didn't just die of starvation.
Because someone wedged a bed up against the door and stuck him in here.
Because I was imprisoned inside this room, and I didn't really feel like dying.
Okay. I mean, the logic is sound. I guess.
Very convenient of them to have left you with everything you needed for that ritual, though.
It is very, very difficult, but oddly enough, those are the sorts of things that an exceptionally skilled wizard such as myself happen to have in their private, personal office. You must be aware by now what floor you're on in this building.
Not especially.
The arena. And I was the arena master. This is my office you have just let me out of.
That explains your flair.
A little, and I also happen to know quite a bit about the floor itself. You, however, have somehow managed to spiral me off track because I was going to express the fact that you appeared to be suggesting that Belcora may well have returned.
Well, if she is the only one with the knowledge to cause the tower to activate, and the tower has activated,
Yes.
it must be her that's doing it.
Yes. Look, myself and Belcora worked on the principle that she was my employer and I was her employee, but quite frankly, she was her horrendous individual. The experimentations for the tower were interesting, but I was more concerned with the concept of finding the best champions. I had little interest beyond that in what was going on in this place. Yes. No.
How does Invar react to Valcora being criticised?
That's entirely up to you.
Okay.
I would say there's no inherent, because if nothing else, Invar is mentally a different person to what they potentially were in the past.
Yes.
So how you view what Invar does is entirely up to you.
Okay.
What I would like to know is, what are people's diplomacy scores? Just out of curiosity.
Do you mean
You're not my style.
I mean diplomacy. I believe it is in its own thing.
Yeah.
11.
I've seen Ned 1 versus Society +9.
Yeah, I don't want society.
Oh my! +3, untrained.
Trained +7.
Expert.
Okay.
Sure.
As you're talking to him, you're starting to notice that he has a very, very strict personality. He is exceptionally bossy as an individual. And for the most part, it would appear that kind of he's looking for... and this is mostly off of Nephi and Phelan. You're noticing that when you don't try and take over, he's much more receptive to you. So if people like Moz, who have kind of dropped the odd little misdemeanor in terms of that sort of thing, have generally speaking not been going well, but for the most part you guys are eking him over to your side. And he kind of, it's very clear that he is not aggressive. He could become very dangerous very quickly if you annoyed him, but at the moment you're towing that line towards actually he's becoming relatively receptive to you. And that seems to be going in your favour. Now, I have a mild request of you. Considering you've let me out, I do realise that you've already done me quite considerable service, but I've been trapped once before. I would really like to take the opportunity to deal with the individual that did this to me. So, based on that principle, I would like to hire your group. I can offer you a certain number of bypasses, maps of this floor if you need any additional assistance with navigating it. There are certain traps built into certain areas of this building, and I happen to know the odd little magical word that could deactivate them. Although, looking at the way that you just raised your eyebrows at me, I'm assuming you've had a close shave once already. But in either case, that section of the arena could be opened up to you if you so decide to have a look around. I could also give you a few clues as to some of the magical properties of the chamber below here to the south of us. In fact, there are 2, I believe, transportation circles on this floor, and I can give you some ideas about that. It's also plausible. Yes, as I say, I could quite easily deal with creating you a map for this floor. I'm not entirely certain, unfortunately, what Jafaki will have done to the floor below, but I once administered that floor as well as it was part of the arena at one point or another. You can tell that myself and Javaki had a falling out of some degree. He escalated it somewhat more than I expected, I will admit. In the meantime, if you were to do that, I would then avail myself to get myself in order, get my papers all sorted out, and then would leave. I would quite like to return home, actually, to Assyrian. So I can at least get myself out of your hair. And no hard feelings. You know, scratch your back, scratch my back, that kind of thing.
This is sounding reasonable. And I assume it's Jafaki you'd like dealt with.
Oh, most definitely, yes.
Well, it sounds like he's going to be a fairly objectionable gentleman, as and when we run across him anyway. Given the things we've seen that have been flesh warped and bone warped in this area to start with.
Mm. Right. Just a brief pause there. We got people back in. His desire is for Jafaki to be destroyed. I want my revenge. And I will get myself sorted out. I will get my papers all organized. I will make sure if you return before I am done that you get all of the things that you require for this floor. Although I will give you at least a small amount. I will give you the passphrase to get past the trap on that corridor. May as well give you at least a goodwill gesture if you weren't to return in time before I have managed to leave. That would be a little bit of a sour deal, wouldn't it now? So I'll at least give you something, a little bonus, as it were.
Appreciate that.
Is this to your agreement?
I would think so.
I'm looking at party mom and dad to make the decision.
It makes our life easier.
It does.
We were going to have to tackle the guy anyway. So
it's your intent to, as you say, tidy your dealings here and seek transport directly back to Assyrian. Is that correct?
It's less a case of seeking transport with enough of, now that I have a little bit more space to move and I can organise myself a little bit more, I can merely teleport myself home. Very little difficulty now. The room as it was designed to not allow anything to teleport within this space because I didn't want to be suddenly jumped by rather unpleasant Shagathi, but obviously that kind of restricted my ability to get out as well. With the door unsealed and with, as I'm guessing, yourselves moving around dealing with any potential hangers-on, I would have enough time to get out of here. I believe that Jafaki also put some seals and wards on the door so I wouldn't be able to move anyway, even if I tried to teleport and dropped my own wards. So those have been broken by you. Again, I appreciate the save there, as it were. But I can get myself out of here without too much issue. I am reasonably powerful.
Like I said, I can't see why we wouldn't agree to assist you in that regard.
Very well. He gives you a very convoluted phrase to say when you approach the corridor. It's very clearly an arcane word of some description. Neffy, you recognise it, but it is a very old and ancient word that isn't really in popular use anymore. But he gives you that passphrase and promises you that it will deactivate the traps on this floor.
And we definitely trust he's saying the right.
You've
Like
got nothing at all in his body language, in the way that he's talking to you, to believe that this man, this thing, whatever you want to call it, is lying. He's an ancient undead creature. They're probably not the nicest folk in the world, but he honestly seems on the level. There's nothing about him which seems to be wrong about how he's talking to you. As I said, he has a superiority complex. Playing against that might end up causing problems, but you haven't done that so far.
Okay.
And then he just turns his chair and starts, rather than kind of sitting there sullenly, he now seems quite active. You can see him moving papers around, picking up certain books, opening them up. Yes, that's the right one. Started to put things together, moving other things together, and in the meantime kind of turns around and goes, "Still here?"
Yeah, Mars will start breaking space. Moving away.
And very casually, as you guys start to step away, you see him reach out his hand, flick his fingers to one side, and the door just shuts.
Can we see any seals that we've broken or otherwise, other than there's a chonking great big bed in the way?
Now that you look at it, actually, yes, you can. Mixed in amongst the various sorts of bits of stuff that were lying around, you do realise that there were things carved into the door which you hadn't seen before, but probably just in knocking around and doing stuff, you managed to rub them away. There's the odd rune stone kicking about on the floor, things that look like they might have been used to create a basic ward on the door that no longer are there.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Okay.
Is the thing? Yep.
Yep.
So, where's this guy? Where do we have to go to kill him? In fact, let's
If
try.
he's a level down, I
let's
still stand by. We need some more practice before we go back down there.
And let's
Yeah.
double check that word actually works. And that phrase
First.
actually works.
Okay, so
Well,
the best of your
Nephi seems to have a
knowledge,
grip on it.
to the best of your knowledge, there are two ways in. There is the jagged corridor to your north, or more actually kind of west, I suppose, from here, but you'd have to go north and round. Or there is the door in this large southern chamber here, where you could easily step through the... if you remember, there was a troll fresco. There was like a fresco on the wall, and one of them was a troll, and if you poked its eyes, it would slide open. But you were pretty sure that the trap was beyond that as well, so you are more within your rights to go either way. But you have control over your characters, guys, so you move wherever you want to move.
Right. A bit more down. So the easiest way is to have a look at this fella
Mm-hmm.
and have a pop. The door open
Okay.
and take a look in.
So you slide open the secret door that was in this room, and you have a look down the corridor, and you can see those telltale lines down the corridor. Uttering this nonsensical, convoluted, complicated phrase that you have just been given by Chachem, all of a sudden those lines just seem to dissipate and disappear.
Okay.
Ding.
Let's try this. Sense of humour.
You start
Very
walking.
cautiously.
You walk down the corridor, noticing as you do all of the bones and the various other bits and pieces that litter the floor around here and all the rest of it, sliced off bits of skull or whatever else that spot the area. You stand in that central chamber and nothing happens.
Whoa.
You notice that there is a door to the north, a door to the south, there is a corridor to the south, and there is a corridor that you well know about to the north.
Just going to take a
that's where
jump
we
off
came in
this
the first
southern
time.
one. Just have a look, see.
So as you bimble down this corridor, you note that the quarters, you've got those spy holes into those chambers again, which is why you can see through the walls on this map, is to represent those little spy holes. So those are all still there. But as you get to the very end of this corridor, what you find is just a simple 10 foot by 10 foot, almost like a turnaround. There is nothing else there, apart from a spyglass that looks into the large chamber. Or a spy hole that looks into the large chamber. But that's it. Nothing else.
Okay.
And it almost looks like this was a means of observing the gladiators, or as it ended up being, prisoners that were locked into these rooms. Without them knowing. So. But beyond that, there's nothing else. Just these two doors.
So we
let's
can
have a-
take-
a- a-
So say we can take a guess at the shape of the one over here, right?
Mhm.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably quite small. In order to fit into where you know the corridors are and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Whereas we can determine
Okay.
less about the one to the bottom.
Mm-hmm. You head up to this door, doing all the normal stuff that you guys do. So checking for spirits, checking for traps and locks and all that sort of jazz, taking a bit of a listen. It's dead silent. There's nothing that seems to be coming from the other side.
Nothing after what
Dead
happened
silent.
last time. Because there was nothing on the last room we opened either.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I don't trust it at all.
I will jiggle the handle and open the door.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
Hey,
go
can we get the
downstairs.
badger somewhere nearby before you do?
Do you want me to jiggle the badger next?
Okay. So, as you step into this room, you are taken aback by how odd it is. It is a simple 10 foot by 10 foot, unadorned, almost empty room.
Almost.
But the wall to the west is completely transparent from this side. Your memory of the from looking at the other side was that was a solid wall, but it is most definitely not. You can see all of the concourse on the other side. All the details. Looking down here, even getting a slight angle down the corridor from where you are, you can see the basilisks wandering around, and they seem to have no idea that you're there.
Huh.
Question.
If
the spell says you just need to see it,
Yeah.
can you cast a spell at the basilisk?
Line of sight technically is there, and that would, but and this is the problem with it, you almost always need a line of travel as well for the spell. So
Yeah.
something like, like that. And that would, as far as you can tell, still hit the wall. It's a really weird feeling. It's not like you're looking at this side going, this just walks out to the corridor and then you bump into it. You can still see the wall, but you can completely see through it at the same time. You know that there's a wall there. You can almost see like the blocks in space that make up the wall, but they're like glass. They're like, everything is like glass. The wall appears to, on this side, to be made of glass stones that you can see through with no issue whatsoever.
Hmm.
We're going to need to be careful of things like this downstairs.
Yeah.
I appreciate this is probably a quirk of this floor, but we need to be really careful about stuff like this downstairs.
Yes.
As you're kind of looking at this, Phelan, you also note another thing about this glass wall. The top 5-foot section of the wall actually has a secret door hidden inside it as well, which would allow you to step through to the concourse.
Aha.
So go in, throw spell, run back in here.
It's doable, certainly. Advisable, maybe not.
How high above the concourse does that door drop you?
You are, I believe that the concourse was 10 foot lower than the balcony part of it. So you'd step out onto the balcony layer. So you'd be about 10 foot up from the pathway of the concourse.
Can basilisks get that high, or can we use that to give ourselves ranged and area effect for them?
The biggest problem with basilisks is that they have a petrifying gaze. At some point you might fail one of those, and then you might be in trouble. In addition to that, as far as you're aware, they probably can climb the 10 foot. Wouldn't be impossible for them. Not necessarily great at it, but they can climb. So
yeah. Okay, so probably not that as a plan then.
Okay. So we know this gives us views up here. Let's try the other one. And then see if that's got anything similar. That might give us a view of the arena itself. Because it's odd that we just got a view down the corridor way, down the alleyway, down the presentee route. That feels weird. Private viewing is private viewing, but it's a bit odd.
okay, you listen at this door, have a look at all the stuff that's there. Again, nothing seems to be coming through this door. No sound, no nothing. As you open it up, you note a couple of things. Firstly, the room is a very odd shape. Rather than being the sort of standard like 20-foot by 15-foot room, which this would be, the corners of this room have been cut off to give it an angular, almost hexagonal kind of shape, barring the far southeast, which houses a door in that corner. As you've already noted, the room is a bit of a mess. There is clearly signs of, to the best of your kind of, the best description you can give it is there is definitely dark, dried, discoloured fluid that has stained the floor of this room. In multiple oddly not specific, but oddly shaped sort of patches of this stuff all over the place. There is, in addition to that, there is also a stone desk. Not a plinth, a stone desk that's been built onto one side of this room. And that actually is housing a massive number of bottles and tools and various jars, of very odd-looking substances. They're just lying around.
Go have a look.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You start having a look around, and there are various bits and pieces in here. Notes, other little knickknacks here and there. The first thing that you note is that there is enough equipment on this stone table that you could actually use it as an expanded alchemist's lab. This is a fully kitted out, expanded lab. Not your standard one, this is the expanded set. So this has got a heck of a lot of stuff in here. There's also dotted around the place, and they're relatively easy to identify, so I'm not going to really go through getting you to roll them. One of you would figure it out. I'm almost certain that Phelan's got a high enough craft that, you know, he'd whiz through this at some point. But there are 3 tanglefoot bags also dotted around various places. These are of a moderate quality as well. They're not your base form. These are 3 moderate tanglefoot bags. I'm going to put those onto your party sheet, but I'm not going to at this point put the alchemist lab on, because the alchemist lab is, well, it's bulk 6. It's not the kind of thing you're carrying around with you. If you want to shift this thing, you can do, but it's going to take you some time. It's not the kind of thing you're going to move right this second.
It's the sort of thing we could take a couple of hours to put into the bag of holding.
Yes. You're more than capable of getting into the bag of holding if you spend a bit of time doing it. Now, the next thing you note, and this is more important, that there are a number of parchments and various other bits and pieces dotted around the room that actually don't seem to relate to the alchemist lab in any way. The first thing you noted is kind of chucked in a corner, almost like they've been discarded by someone to clear space on the desk for other things to be written down, are a series of old pieces of almost like portfolios, folders of paper, in which you notice that what appears to be a series of notes on warriors and gladiators that are fighting in the arena. And these notes seem to be the kind of notes that you would take if you weren't asking people, you were spying on them to find out this information. Secrets, things that they were involved in that would not necessarily have put them in Belcora's best light, or things that they've said that would. These are the kinds of things that you would have private secret conversations of, say in your chambers where you don't think you're being overlooked, or as you wander around the arena's training grounds, including down the main concourse. And you start to put a picture together that Belcora was not just inviting people here to fight and to own their skills, but was spying on them to pick up information about these people, to potentially identify who was a threat or who wasn't, or who might join her side in coming fights. The notes that are on the table are a little bit newer. In fact, they go through a variety of different sort of years. You can see some that have been written on multiple times. And it appears to be some sort of map of the corridors just to the north. The large chamber, the one that goes off to the north, the one that goes south, the one that goes over to the east. With a series of lines that have been drawn on the map, scribbled out, redrawn, scribbled out again. A new map has been drawn. That one's had several scribbles done on it. And you start to realise that somebody's been using this space, and now that you look at the blood stains and you realise that they are blood stains that go from the trapped room back away, like somebody's tried to escape the traps that are here, this has been a staging grounds for somebody trying to get past the trap and failing several hundred, maybe even more times, sending more and more people in who are getting more and more confused about why their maps don't tell them where these traps are and what's going on with them, because as you are well aware with your experience, that trap moved, and unfortunately whoever was sent up to try and break through this thing couldn't figure that out. And you're pretty certain, looking at the variety of different writing styles and all the rest of it, that it wasn't the same person each time. In fact, quite potentially, a number of people were sent to deal with this, and all of them failed in multiple different ways and to multiple different levels of failure. The very final thing in this room is a door. With all the sort of stuff that's been going on, you spend a bit of time listening at the door and everything else, and you realise that there's no sound coming from there. There's nothing else. But you do spot that periodically there have been a couple of bloodstains that have managed to get back down the stairs, or back down through that door, because as you open it up, you will discover that it is a set of stairs that heads down onto that level below you again. And it would appear that in order to continue enacting his revenge, Jafaki was sending minions up through the stairs to their ultimate demise at the hands of the Scything Blade trap. And with this knowledge and with this area cleared, you have actively cleared this side of the dungeon, other than the arena itself, where you saw that large creature, and there is a little bit over to the west that you haven't done, around near where the bar was. But as it happens, the experience and all the rest of it that you've just gained from talking to a mummified wizard of ancient knowledge, that is enough that you all level up to level 6. So when you guys come back next week, I fully expect you all to have all of the stats and everything sent through to me, so that we can have it all sorted out. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okie dokie.
Maybe remind me more than once.
So, for everybody else, that is going to be it for this evening. We're gonna stop off there, and we're going to let these guys start working out what the heck they're going to do next. For the time being, I'm going to say goodbye for now from me, and goodbye from the players.
Bye
Bye
bye.
from the players.
Cheers, everybody, and see you next time. Bye bye.